Hi, I'm Dennis Vanderginst. Join me in a series of entertaining and interesting conversations with entertaining and interesting people. We'll explore various aspects of the human experience and what makes life more fun. This is Uncommon Convos. Thank you for tuning in. I am your host, Dennis Vanderginst, here with my charming colleague, Dana Watkins. Today, we're looking forward to a really uncommon convo with Dale Rupplinger. Dale is a bodybuilding legend who won Mr. Iowa, Mr. Central USA, Mr. America, and Mr. Universe. In fact, he's the only person to ever win Mr. USA, Mr. America, and Mr. Universe in the same year. In fact, if I'm correct, he scored a perfect score at Mr. Universe as well. The first one to do that. Isn't that right, Dale?
Yes, that is.
All right. He's been a personal trainer for the last 35 years, helping other people reach their fitness goals. He's married to wife Linda and has 4 boys and 6 grandkids. He's been a motivational speaker. He's spoken with on some of the same venues with Art Linkletter. Some of you might remember him from Children or Kids Say the Darndest Things. Lynn Swan, John Wooden, and other inspiring people. I've known Dale for 10 or 12 years, but it's been quite a while since I've spoken with him, so I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So Dale, thank you for being here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Feeling good. It's a beautiful day out. I thank God every day I get up anymore. You know what I mean?
We all should be doing that. That's for sure. I braced you before we started and told you that I'm going to throw a little bit of a curve at you. A friend had suggested that we do something a little bit different and ask the guest to ask themselves the first question of the interview. So I want you to ask yourself a question. You can give yourself a softball if you like. I don't care.
Oh, I'm going to.
All right. Will you ask yourself the first question that you get to answer?
Well, you've been personal training now for about 35 years, Dale. How much longer do you think you're going to continue training, and do you ever plan on retiring?
Good question.
Good question.
And, I guess it would come down to the fact is I'm going to keep on doing this as long as somebody will hire me. I love what I do. I love teaching. I love my clients see that light bulb come on when I've explained something to them or showed them something that really made a difference for them. Love dialing people in nutritionally and motivating and stimulating them. Train a number of people who own their own businesses or are very successful in what they do. And sometimes when they see me and I'm training them, I'm the only one in their day that says, that was great, good job, you got good form there, you're doing it right. It's the only attaboy they get because they're handing out attaboys all day long. So I guess that's it. I still feel good. So I just couldn't see myself sitting around, I guess.
All right. Well, that's the last softball question you get. So.
That's okay.
No, not really. I mentioned that even though I've known you and of your accomplishments for quite some time, I wasn't really aware of everything that had gone in to getting you to that level of success until I listened to another podcast, which was Bodybuilding Legends, I believe is what it was called. And you went into some detail as to, what you had to go through. So my first question, I guess, is why, knowing what kind of agony bodybuilders put themselves through, why in the hell did you decide to ever get into that sport?
Well, I guess I have to take you back a while, back into high school, where my parents really couldn't afford to send me to Assumption High School, and all my friends had gone through St. Paul's, and everyone I knew in the world was going on to Assumption. And my dad looked at our family of 6 kids, and he thought that, to get them all 6 through Assumption would be a tough gig for him at that point. So he was going to send me to Central. And it just tore me apart. I just even couldn't even imagine having to leave all my friends and start all new friends over again. So they had this program at Assumption where if you were willing to help out at school or clean classrooms after school or empty out the trash cans, stuff like that, that they would pay half of your tuition, or they'd absorb it. And then, I talked my dad into paying the other half. And so that's how I started out, and he granted to let me go to Assumption. So,
And Dale, before you go too much further, for those folks who are listening and aren't from the area that you're referring to, Assumption is a Catholic school and Central is a
correct.
public school, and so you
Yes,
wanted to go to this more expensive Catholic school.
yes, correct. And
Gotcha.
that's where all my friends were going. So while I was emptying out trash cans and sweeping floors, um, the other guys and kids were, able to go out for sports. And I always thought that I had the ability to be a good athlete. I just really didn't have an opportunity. Now, there was at one point, I went out for swimming one year because it was, I was able to because it ran a little bit later and started a little bit later. And also, my father, for my senior year, said I didn't have to clean classrooms anymore. So he let me go out for football my senior year as if, the team isn't already picked at that point and,
Right.
positions already aren't had by some other kid. But I did play all specialty uh, as far as the football schedule goes, the kickoff, the punt returns, the things like that. And I did play a little defensive back, but I still left that desire and that urge for me to want to see if I could, really excel. And, I got to about the age of, in my 20s and, sports kind of passed me by, and I still had that burning desire inside of me to do something. And for my 21st birthday, I got a book called Winning Bodybuilding by Franco Colombo. And I read the book that night, and every page I turned, I realized that this was a sport I could do. I mean, I didn't need a team. I really didn't even need a coach. All I had to do was really study hard and learn it, understand it, have the desire, have the drive. And I always wanted to find out what I could achieve. If I put it all on the line, what in my life could I really achieve? And that was just a burning desire that I've always had within me, and that's what kind of got me started.
Even though you didn't have any idea like where you were going, you knew there was something huge that you could achieve.
I always felt that way, and
Yeah.
believe me, after reading the book, I told all my family, all my friends. Within about 2 weeks, I got around to just about all of them, just talking to them on the phone or whatever. And I said, in 2 years, I'm going to be Mr. Iowa, and someday I'm going to be Mr. America.
Nice.
Well, they all laughed at me. I mean, my God, at that time I was riding Harleys and drinking beer. I mean, I'd never lifted a weight in my life, but
Wow.
I just had that belief. I just
Man,
had the belief.
I think I want to say that I'm going to be within 2 years a billionaire, and I'm going to ride Harleys for the next couple of months. But if it works that easily, heck yeah. But no, I know it doesn't. But by the way, at this point, for those people who are listening and choose to also watch the video, I'm going to have our producer insert a photo of you as
Oh, okay.
Mr. Universe, because I want them to see that is not the body of a swimmer. You talk about
No,
swimming.
no.
So, did you have? I know that I shouldn't say I know, but I assume that some of this has to do with your genetic makeup as well as determination. Is that fair?
I would say that I had an athletic physique. Um, I'd have to have, because when you think around the world, there are millions of guys who aspire to become world best at our sport. Millions. And when it comes right down to it, when you're in that 1/10 of 1%, maybe even less in the world, God had to give you a perfect bone structure. I mean, I already had a huge rib cage. I had small joints, a narrow waist. I was balanced from top to bottom as far as my bone structure and everything. I had good genetics. I had good metabolism at that time. So when it gets to that point, it's really what God gave you, and if He puts you in the right, symmetrical body for it. Early on, I didn't quite all understand all that, but when I got up there and I realized that this was a very select group of people in the world, that it just wasn't just me. I had to have the right combination to begin with, and I was just lucky.
And you mentioned the book by Franco Columbu that you had, that I guess turned you on to the sport.
Yeah.
And he's a world champ too, isn't he?
Oh yes, he won the Mr. Universe. He won the Mr. Olympia, which is the pro version. He was Arnold Schwarzenegger's best friend. And he's in a number of the movies. If you ever watch the movies, he's the short, blocky little guy that's in some of the Conan movies and things like that.
funny.
Arnold always brought him along, gave him a bit part, and threw him in there so they could hang out together.
I always love that you see like Adam Sandler does that a lot with a lot of his buddies. They get thrown into these small parts in every movie he's in, and I love to hear that Arnold did that as well. My understanding is that were you the first in your family? I understand that you have other family members who also though went into bodybuilding. Is that right?
Yeah, it was my brother Dan is the first one who started lifting in my mom and dad's garage with this, the weight set that was the plastic that had the sand in
Yeah.
it, and I mean, it was just cruel, crude equipment that he had back then. And I always used to laugh at my brother. Said, Dan, if you turned sideways in class, they'd count you apps. And he was so skinny to begin with. But he had a determination, and he kept at it. And eventually, my brother Dan, after I had, won the Mr. Iowa, and then he went on to win the Central States. But that's where he about ended up at. He's much taller than I am. Guys with longer legs, it's a little bit more difficult to get them as balanced as they need to be. But he had a great physique at one point in time. So it was my brother Dan, and then I had three first cousins that also won the Iowa. So in the 80s, 5 years in the 1980s, it was my family that won the Iowa. And there was four. I'll say this: there was four guys, and there was one girl. So there was Greg Grunder, and then there was his sister Sherry Grunder, who also won the Iowa. So good genetics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good genetics.
So did you guys figure out together how to fuel your bodies for that kind of competing? Because I feel like it wasn't readily available back then.
How to fuel it?
Yeah, like what you do to really get where you went. Like I can't even imagine what a protein shake tasted like.
Oh gosh, you almost
Yeah.
had to stand above the sink. So if you had a gag reflex,
Yeah.
you didn't get it on the carpeting or the flooring or whatever. Yeah, I used to chew liver tablets so they'd absorb in my system better.
Gross.
You have to understand, I didn't have a coach here in the very beginning, so I probably trained about an hour and a half a day, but I also read 3 hours a day of everything I could get my hands on, from fitness to lifting to nutrition. My God, I even read the nutritional almanac cover to cover and took notes. So,
Wow.
That's the kind of research that went into it. And, basically the only thing we're doing in the gym, and people don't understand this, they think they're building something in the gym. They're not. In the fitness center, the only thing that we are doing is that we are tearing tissue on a microscopic level. No pain, no gain.
Yeah.
Those little sayings have a reason behind them. You have to be in the pain barrier at times for you to tear enough tissue, and then you have to have the proper amount of rest and the proper amount of nutrition to mend that muscle back bigger and stronger. If any one of those is out of balance, you don't grow. So it's kind of like fire. For fire to chemically happen, you have to have fuel, you have to have oxygen, and you have to have heat. If any one of those is missing, fire doesn't chemically happen. And so it's the same way with bodybuilding. And if you want to train and compete, it's a process of sparking it, which is tearing it, and then it's the amount of resting time, and it's the amount of nutrition. I always tell these young kids who are trying to aspire to being better and bigger, you can't build a brick wall without bricks. You can't build a body without so much protein every 3 to 4 hours that's bathing your system, allowing it to repair, reheal, and get better. If I'm going to work out this hard in a workout, it's the rest and the nutrition that's going to make me bigger and better. Why would I want to screw that end of it up when I went through the hard part, which was the workout?
Yeah.
But if it's not in balance, you don't grow. And I'm going to tell you why. I see people coming in the gym. I see them come in, very dedicated people, I must say. It almost amazes me how dedicated some people are. And I see them walk in that gym, and I see them every day for 5 years, and I see no change.
I'm sorry.
I don't know what drives them. I don't know what gets them back in there.
Yeah.
If I wouldn't see change, I'd quit. I certainly wouldn't hire me to keep doing it if they didn't see change. So it's people have some great desire, but they just don't know how to put it together, or they just think that we go in there and we just lift some weights, and it's the mechanics, it's everything. It's the mind to muscle connection. If you're not feeling it in your chest when you're working your chest, you simply aren't working it.
Right.
And it's amazing to me what I see in a fitness center every day. They just and even in a machine. People get in a machine, they go, well, this is simple, I'm just in a machine. No, where's your elbows? Are your elbows up? Are you focusing on that muscle? Where's your hand placement? All of that makes a complete difference. Sure. And they never get it. They just never get it.
I was involved in athletics growing up, and of course not to the level that you got involved. One thing that I was always told, and I want to know if this is true, is that if you want to get bigger, you lift heavier. If you want to get more cut, you just do more reps with less weight. Is that true, Dale?
To a small extent, but not really. I always keep my exercises with the people that I train and myself joint friendly. You have to make sure that the mechanics is right. You don't want to injure yourself. It just takes you back, doesn't move you forward. Most trainers feel good about the fact that they make you crawl out of the gym. I've really done my job if I make you crawl out of the gym. And that's simply crazy. An 8-year-old could push you hard enough to make you crawl out of a gym, but what did you really accomplish? So keeping it joint friendly, I always start off with an exercise that people can do 12 of, because I know that's enough. And if they're using really, really good form and they're not cheating it, that's a good warm-up set. Then we'll move something that's 10 reps, maybe something that's 8 reps. When I was doing that, I would go from 12 reps down to about 5 or 6 reps when I was really competing. Maybe sometimes I'd max out, but not all that much. But I'm going to tell you, every set after the first set is to failure. Every single set. When I went into the fitness center on my own, because I can beat myself up really bad. It's just other people, It's kind of like that Jim Carrey movie, Liars, when he's that lawyer and he's he's in the bathroom and he's
Smashing his head. And,
yeah, the guy walks in. He goes, "What are you doing?" "I'm kicking my ass." "What's it look like?" You know? Well, that's what I could do to myself. But so it was me against the weights. I always knew exactly how many reps I got out of a certain weight from the day before or a couple of days before, and it was always my goal to beat it. Always my goal to beat it. So is the weights going to win today, or was I going to win today? That's the kind of drive and attitude that I had to have going into the fitness center, because I had certain goals and I had to meet those goals, and I had a very aggressive agenda, so I didn't have any time to waste.
I think a lot of our audience is probably not that familiar with bodybuilding. I mean, they may be familiar with Arnold and Lou Ferrigno and maybe a few others, and I'm sure some people are much more familiar. But having heard you speak, in more detail about what you went through, I feel is something that they might really take something away from, just understanding what perseverance can do. So I wanted to kind of back up and go through that point in time where you made that decision that you wanted, you're going to give yourself X number of years and you wanted to win, Mr. America, Mr. Universe, et cetera. And take us through that, like from the time you made that decision, you got that book, what did you put yourself through to the point that you had, I guess, your first competition?
Okay. Well, I guess I got to take you back to what really drove me. What really drove me is that, I was the oldest of six, and my father was a strict disciplinarian and never really told me that, I was doing good or whatever. It just seemed to be the World War II group, the greatest generation of our lifetime. Mm-hmm. But I always seemed to have disappointed him. He always wanted me to be the best in school, to go to college and move forward. And I'd come home late for dinner, and he'd be upset with me. And what kind of example are you showing to your brothers and sisters? And it just was a point where I just had to prove to me that I could, really excel at something. And so I went into the gym each day with wanting to know who I was and what I could really do with my life. So, that's kind of how I started out, and that was my drive, my goal. And then every single workout of every single day, because I really wasn't a very positive mental attitude type person. I mean, I believed in myself, don't get me wrong. I thought I could, but, it's like that little train, I think I can, I think I can. And, I had to turn that into, I know I can. And so every day I had to prove it to myself, each and every day. So I never once throughout my whole career, never once let my head hit the pillow at night without me absolutely doing everything in that day that I needed to do to be successful and to move my life forward. Now, whether it was doing that last set of sit-ups, or whether it was making sure that I got my 2.5 to 3 hours of reading in each day, even though I was tired and maybe I didn't feel like it, I never allowed myself that luxury, and I call it a luxury, of a negative thought. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do that to myself, because if I would have allowed that to sneak in just once, would I not do that last set of sit-ups, or would I have not spent the time reading the next day or the next week? I couldn't go there. I had to do it. And over the course of the years of never allowing myself that luxury, I created such a strong, positive mental attitude that I really thought I could accomplish anything that I ever set my mind to. And I was just blessed enough and fortunate enough, to be able to do that.
Now you won the Central USA competition in '81. How long before that was it that you actually started training?
Well, I won the Iowa, which was the first, and that was 1980.
Okay.
I got the book when I was 24. I guess it was about 2 3/4 years before the Iowa circled back around again, where I knew that I was ready. And so that was my first competition. And well, it's the first one that they counted, but it was the only one that I had my mind set on. But that was the first competition I'm leaving the whole audience here.
I know this story. You
Okay.
won a competition in Illinois.
I won the competition at the Junior Illinois 2
Right.
weeks prior, because I figured, okay, the Iowa's my goal, and I've never been on stage in my life, not alone shave my body and put that little brief on. So I'm kind of just freaking out about
No,
the
I
whole
do that
thing.
every day,
Yeah.
so I don't know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
so I thought to myself, well, maybe a warm up might be a good idea, and I'll do it in Illinois where nobody knows me. I'll go up there and I'll do this thing.
I do it in my office. Phil. I get it.
So I went up there and I won, and I had the trophies and everything else, and that gave me a shot of confidence. I did my posing routine in front of some people for the first time and the whole bit. And so when I got to the Iowa and I was signing up for the Iowa, the same head judge that was judging the Illinois competition was now head judging the Iowa, and he said, "I'm sorry, you can't enter." And I had no clue at that time. He says, "No, you can't. You can only compete in one and win one state in a year." He says, "You can't do it." And I says, "You don't understand. My mom and dad are here. My sisters who drove hours and hours to be. All my friends are here. This has been my desire and goal ever since I lifted a weight. You can't do this to me." So he made me sign this affidavit that before the competition, that I had to renege my title in Illinois, and I had to promise to send back my trophies. Otherwise, they take away if I win anything at Iowa, they take that away from me too. So I went in there and I gave away all my Illinois things to compete at the Iowa. So
It turned out all right.
so, yeah, it worked out good anyway. He says, okay, Judge. I talked to him afterwards. He says, "Okay, you're pretty confident. That was a pretty good choice." I says, "Well, thank you."
So now you're on your way, and '83, I guess, was that was the big breakout year for you, right?
82. 81, I
82
won
was?
I
Oh,
went back.
82, yes.
I went back to Illinois, in Elgin, Illinois, and I won the Mr. Central USA.
Gotcha.
And that was against Mike Everson, who was all over the magazines, Muscle and Fitness and everything. He was a big writer. And Corey Everson, his wife, won the women's division, and I won the overall as a middleweight. I won the overall over the light heavy and the heavyweights. Her husband was in the heavyweight division, and I won the overall for that competition. And Corey went on to win the Miss Olympia like 7 times. I mean, she's just incredible. But
By the way, that's a big deal, right? I mean, as far as the competitions, my understanding is that normally you would expect the lightweight or the heavyweights and the light heavyweights to have kind of an edge
Oh, big
in
time.
competition as
Yeah.
far as the overall. But there are divisional winners as well, and you were a middleweight, is that
I was
right?
I was a middleweight. Yeah, I was a middleweight. So I looked so big, and this isn't me saying it. If you ask anybody in bodybuilding, they'll tell you that I was the biggest middleweight that they'd ever seen. And Mike and Ray Metzner, who were great bodybuilders, and anybody in the bodybuilding world knows who Mike and Ray is. God bless their souls, because they're both passed away now. Called me the guy with hollow bones, because there's no way I could look that big and only weigh 173 and a half pounds to win the middleweight and the overalls. So I think I shine so much as a middleweight than when the four weight class winners get together to compete for the overall. I've made such an impression upon them that, well, in my own mind, I was hoping and thinking that that was the reason that propelled me to the overalls. But I had a little trick up my sleeve as far as being on stage and looking bigger than I was. And
Well, how's that?
well, Boyer Coe, another great bodybuilder who's still alive today, and he's down in Florida. He was shorter than I was, and I saw him at the Olympia. I was sitting in the judging area at the Olympia, and this was before I even won the Iowa. And I was sitting there with Arnold, because Arnold he befriended me a year before that. We became friends.
Wait,
And,
Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yes.
Pardon me?
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure I was thinking about
Yeah,
someone
Arnold
else.
Schwarzenegger.
Okay.
After the first year of competing, they were going to put on this. Arnold was putting on the Olympia in Columbus, Ohio, and there was a little ad in the Muscle and Fitness that Arnold was going to put this seminar on afterwards for 4 hours, a half a day. And if you sent in your money, and you could go to the seminar afterwards. And so I had my notebook and my pad and everything, and I was really excited about all of it. And there was this big room that could have fit 300 people. And I got in there, and I thought maybe I was early or something. There ended up being less than 20 of us there.
Oh, gosh.
And Arnold came into the room like the room was full. I mean, he wasn't disappointed that the room.
For him.
I mean, yeah, it always amazed me that he wasn't disappointed, or he just didn't kind of cut it short or whatever. So I really got the chance to talk to him, and really got a chance to spend some time with them. And I told him what my goals were. I mean, I hadn't done anything at this point. I had a desire. I wanted to be Mr. Iowa. I wanted to be Mr. America. And so the next year, he wasn't doing it anymore. Why would he? It was a total failure. I don't know what the heck happened there, but now you could fill a stadium if you would have asked to do this again. But I walked down to him. I had this notebook. I had it full of a million questions I had for him. And I says, Arnold, do you all remember me from last year? I asked you some questions. I went to he goes, yeah, you're that kid from Iowa, right? And so I must have made an impression on him. But Boyer Coe, anyway, I was asking Arnold questions, and he was kind enough to answer for me. I saw Boyer Coe on stage and go, wow, I've always wanted to meet Boyer Coe. So I went backstage, because on the stage he looked like a giant. I mean, he looked just as big as everybody else. I got backstage, and he's, like this to me, and I'm going, Boyer, I've always wanted to meet you. I've always been a fan. I think you have an awesome physique. I says, I didn't realize that. I mean, you look like you're huge on stage. How do you do it with everybody else being so much taller and bigger than you? And he says, I'm going to tell you what I do. He says, while everybody's on stage and we're all standing in a line, nonchalantly, I go out about an extra foot than everybody else.
Oh, geez.
And that way, when you're in the seats and you're looking up at me, I look about as big as everybody else up
So
there.
he's closer to the audience? Is that what
He's
you mean?
closer to
Oh.
the audience.
Yeah,
And so when you're looking up at an angle, and if somebody's stepping out, even though you're taller, so
Yeah,
I
smart.
learned it, and
And it worked.
that helped. It
That's
had
great.
helped. Yeah.
Speaking of the lineup and all, I imagine it has a big impact, but how much of an impact is the actual posing, and how do you go about learning to do the poses? And is there coaching for that, or
You-
how does that come about?
just practicing. Just I was looked at other poses in magazines of other bodybuilders and exactly how they were doing. We used to take one mirror that would be flat on the wall, but at the opposite mirror we'd have it angled. So when I was standing there facing that mirror, this angled mirror would be showing through that wall, and I could see my back and just how I moved my arms and where I put everything, how my back would look. So, I developed a way, and I knew what actual felt and where I needed to be to accent my poses to the best of my ability. So since I didn't have a coach to be able to stand there and do this or do that, I basically had to have those two angled mirrors to be able to see my backside so I could actually see what was happening and taking place. It's always, and not every pose looks good on you. Not every pose looked good on me. So,
I can vouch for that.
well, even for me, I mean, I got a perfect score and I still thought that some poses just didn't look good on me. It's always better to do, 10 poses that look great on you as to do 15 of them and 5 of them not to be so good, because it's usually the ones that kind of aren't so good that the judges kind of go, that didn't look quite all that great. So you always wanted to leave the judge with the best you had, and maybe even kind of hide a flaw that you may have, maybe by doing a different pose just a little bit differently and everything else. But I'm telling you, when you're on stage, that is intense, because every single muscle in your body you are holding and keeping tight, whether you're being judged out there or you're standing back and you're not being judged, because they're also looking at you. Well, should I bring him up and compare him to these two now? And if you're just relaxed and standing around back there and you're not watching what you're doing, a judge may just pass you by. So you may be out there for an hour of holding your body like that. And if nobody's who's ever done it, that is amazingly grueling. It may not sound it, but it's
Well, I
majorly
think
intense.
I have seen somewhere, I can't remember where it was not too long ago, that bodybuilders in competitions, they look like they're at peak strength when they're on the stage, but traditionally, and I don't know if it was like this back then, but they dehydrate themselves for days before, so they actually feel incredibly weak while they're up there. Was that your experience?
Well, no, it wasn't. Some of these guys took diuretics and other things to lose the water weight between the muscle and the skin.
Yeah.
And then they ended up cramping up on stage and
Oh, wow.
causing all sorts of problems. Also, when you're jacking with your electrolytes, your sodium, potassium mixtures, and everything else, you can put yourself at risk of having heart arrhythmia, or even jacking with your heart so much that you could cause yourself to die. I mean,
Sure.
what I always did is I always hydrated. Let me explain this to you. If you step on a scale or somebody tells you that you have 100 pounds of lean body mass on your body, 100 pounds of muscle is on your frame.
Yeah.
Because it's an easy number to work with. 100
Okay.
pounds. 76 pounds of that is water.
Sure.
Water.
Yeah.
Only 24 pounds of that is actual tissue. So how much do you want to deflate your muscles before you go out on stage?
Yeah. I feel
They
like
always-
that just gave me a good excuse to not work out, because if it's only 24%, then geez.
But it's a hell of an important 24.
That's true.
right?
That's true.
Maybe
wait.
bodybuilders had 30%. I don't know, but it's an important 24%. But it's the hydration.
But wait a second, Dale. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I'm going to call bullshit here, because I heard you say that before, I don't know if it was the Mr. Universe or which competition it was, that you were drinking wine as you were pumping up for it, right?
Oh yeah. Well,
And that dehydrates you, doesn't it?
not in a half hour.
Well, that's different. That was unintentional.
Not in a half hour.
But I would love for you to explain what that was all about, what you were doing with the wine.
Oh, well, okay. Well, let me take you back about the water, and then I'll hit the wine thing.
Okay,
So,
all right.
so for me to make middleweight, I had to weigh under 176 to make the middleweight cut, and I would probably start out 16 months earlier than that, weighing about 190 pounds in the off season. So my nutrition, I didn't cut anything out, but I just kept reducing portions, seeing how my body was tightening up. Some guys try to do it in a shorter period of time, and all they do is that their body not only burns fat, but it also eats away at the very precious muscle that they spent all year building. They lose it all getting ready for a competition. It just drove me insane. Why do these guys do it? It's insanity.
Yeah.
So I would just slowly cut things out, but I'd always keep my protein intake up so that I would keep that muscle structure while I was losing that body fat. And if you don't do it over a long period of time, like 16 weeks, well, you're probably going to lose a little muscle. So it was very grueling. 16 weeks, you wouldn't want to do it. Food just became another thing I had to do. Nothing tastes good. It's all bland. But it was the formula I knew I had to do to win.
Yeah.
And so right at the contest, I would still probably be about 6 pounds overweight. So the night before, I'd do a sauna. And I'd sauna and I'd shower to cool my body back down. I'd sauna, shower until I lost about that 6 pounds. And then for the rest of the night, I might suck on a couple of pieces of orange, maybe a few ice cubes, but that was it. Then I would make weigh-in. And then after weigh-in, it was on. It was apple pie. But here's the deal. Losing that much water took all the moisture between my skin and the muscle. So it wrapped my skin into the muscle. Now I'm going to do the carb up, which is going to give me all the blood sugar that I need to fill my muscle. So I'm pulling my skin tight, and now I'm filling my skin. And it's like taking saran wrap and wrapping it tight. And it just made everything stand out tremendously. So from that point on, it was piece of pie here, it was whatever. Now at the competition, when you're backstage pumping up for the competition, well, I hadn't had any alcohol for 16 weeks. I had, didn't have anything like that. And what I was doing at that point is that the sugar in that from the wine made my veins like garden hoses, but it also relaxed me. And so I'm backstage. I got this bottle of wine. I'm doing some weights. I got my wine glass sitting there, especially for the Mr. USA at Caesar's Palace. People are looking at me and, what's with this guy? So anyway, I go out and I compete. It's a 2-day competition. So I go out and compete, and I thought I did really well. But the next day's the finals. And I walk back into Caesar Palace, and I'm running a little late, and I look around, and there's guys drinking wine everywhere. I mean, I'm looking around, and these guys are going... And before, they were making fun of me and laughing at me, but that was before I took my sweats off, and that was before they had to compete against me that day. Right. But it just was so comical to me that here's all these guys drinking wine, like the wine was going to do it for them that day. Right. And so anyway, that's the wine story. But I did that for every competition.
Do you see other people doing that nowadays?
No.
No.
Here was the thing. I train 365 days a year to get ready for a contest. very grueling, very demanding. You know, I never let my head hit the pillow without doing my very best every day.
Sure.
And the day of the competition is my day of celebration. I made it. Nothing's going to change it from here. That wine is only going to make me look better. It's my way of celebration, and this is a day of celebration for me. It's not a day of stressing out. It's not a day of worrying about what the other guy's doing or, you know, how I might stack up. I never went into a competition I didn't think I wasn't going to win. And so it was a day of rejoicing. It was a day of celebration for me. It was a day to show the world what I had accomplished up to this point. So it was a very happy, exciting day for me. I wasn't stressing out or flipping out like other bodybuilders. This was my day, and I was going to have fun.
You know, I know it's completely different, but ironically, you and I met through the pageant world.
Right.
And in the pageant world, there is a Miss USA and a Miss America, and they're distinct. At least I know they've changed the formatting in recent years, but it used to be one of the biggest distinctions was that in the Miss America pageant they had a talent section. Now I know it's not the same, but what is the difference between the Mr. USA and the Mr. America contests that you were in?
Nothing.
And won? Nothing. Same competitors, same judges, different.
Well, yeah,
sponsorship,
it's a different promoter.
Yeah.
It was basically it. The year that it became the America, see, the AAU had the rights to the title Mr. America, and then there was the NPC, and they created. I believe that the USA came basically by the NPC because there was this tiff between the NPC and it's just affiliations. It's just, that's all it was. So they created this USA for the NPC, and the Mr. America was the AAU. So then they ended up calling it the National Bodybuilding Championship, but everybody knew it as the Mr. America. And so that's the only distinction that I can tell you about the two of them. But it is the Mr. America or the National NPC by winning those weight classes. There's 4 weight classes: heavyweight, light heavyweight, middleweight, and lightweight. By winning that got you to the World Bodybuilding Championships. You made the team then to gain the World Bodybuilding Championships, which was actually the Mr. Universe.
Right.
So you had to win that one to be a part of the team.
So I guess the equivalent of Mr. America would launch you into the equivalent of Mr. Universe.
That would get you, that would put you on the team.
Competition.
Kind of like for the Olympics. You have to win a certain event before now you qualify for the Olympics. Our Olympics is the World Bodybuilding Championship.
Got it. And that is what you won in '82.
Yes. In 1982 is when I won the Mr. Universe. Well, I won the Mr. USA at Caesar's Palace that year. Then 3 months later, I won the Mr. America at Radio City Music Hall, and then a week later, week and a half later, or whatever, then you're set up, and that's the Mr. Universe, the World Bodybuilding Championship.
And just so everyone understands the distinction too, that is all an amateur level.
Those are all amateurs.
Very high end, obviously. But
Right.
then, as I understood it, if you did well or if you won, I guess at the universe level, you could launch into the professional ranks and compete at Mr. Olympia.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Back when I was competing, you had to win the Mr. Universe to get your pro card to be able to compete at the level that Arnold was and the other bodybuilders, the pro bodybuilders were at that point. You didn't get a pro card unless you had won the Mr. Universe. Now they hand them out like candy. I mean, you could win you could win your pro card by winning the Central USA or getting placed third. You can win your pro card. It's all about the money now. See, it costs you for your cards now. Back when I was winning it, no, they handed it to you. They were happy to get some more bodybuilders that were competing at the pro level. But the pro card really meant something back then.
Yeah.
Now there's hundreds of pro cards all over the place. I mean, it's like candy they're handing out. So it's just a little bit disappointing to think that, yeah, I got my pro card. Oh, really? That's kind of how I see it. But okay, yeah, you got your pro card. Fine. Yeah, you placed third at Iowa. All right, okay. Anyway,
Well, when you moved, yeah, but when you moved on to the professional ranks, was there a lot of money at stake? Were you able to make money doing that?
No.
No endorsement deals or?
Oh, endorsements. I mean, you get endorsements on things, and it allowed you, like these state competitions. What they would do is they bring in someone like me, put me on the venue on the card. I do a guest posing. I may do a seminar there. I charge people, so much ahead to come to my seminar, or the promoter would pay me so much to do a seminar and he'd charge them. But they would pay me so many grand to come in and do 5 minutes of guest posing in the middle of the competition to get a lot of fans to come there, and I'd sign autographs and pictures and do those sorts of things to promote lower events like Central USA or those kind of competitions. So that's kind of where you made your money. The only money that was being handed out back when I was competing was, I think you could win $50,000 if you won the Olympia, and they weren't paying down at all. So it wasn't like golf. So most of these guys were living with each other, 2 or 3 guys per room out in California, training at Gold's Gym, barely able to afford the food that they're eating. They might be a janitor someplace. So that was kind of how it is. Now today, you can make $1 million a year doing the sport today. I mean, they'll make $700,000-800,000 for winning the Olympia today, and break it on down through the top ranks. And a lot of that came, I'll have to give it to Arnold as a promoter. I think he felt ripped off all the years that he competed, and now they're paying out. It's kind of like Pat Miletich,
He kind of did all right though.
Who Arnold? Yeah, Arnold.
He kind of did okay.
Yeah.
Even
Thank God he got into acting. But before then, I don't know about that. But acting really helped him out, and obviously he's done great at it. So
yeah, and you mentioned Pat. So
and Pat. Back when Pat was competing, I was competing. You weren't making nothing. Look at what these UFC fighters make today. I mean,
sure.
Pat would never have to work a day in his life. He was a legend, my God. There was no weight class back then. He was the winner overall of all the weight classes. That's crazy thought anymore. Right. That's why he's a legend. So
right. Now, I know in 1984 something terrible happened, and I want to talk about that in a moment. But between the Mr. Universe and that tragedy in '84, you did tour professionally for a while. You did do the Mr. Olympia, correct?
Yeah, I did do the Olympia the year right after winning the Mr. Universe. I did compete there. Placed 13th in the pros. Now you have to understand, I competed at a body weight of 173.5 all the way up through my whole amateur career, and now I'm going on stage with the guys that are weighing 240, 250.
Sure.
And there's no weight classes anymore. So when I'm on stage right next to these guys, and so I just realized at that point that I was going to have to go and regroup, and I was going to have to get big. I was going to have to get a lot bigger to compete with these guys. So, I started training not so much heavier, but I was getting bigger. And like I said, 45, 50 grams of protein every 3 hours, to, gain the size that I thought that I needed to compete at that level. Unfortunate, here I am, the critic of everybody else training in the right form. With my clients that I have today, I preach form, the right mechanics. I keep it joint friendly. We move forward, but we move forward unless they can do it correctly, unless I'm happy with the way they're performing. Back when I was training, I was kind of like the bull in the china shop. I had good form, don't get me wrong, but I always pushed myself to the wall every time. I mean, even getting ready for the Mr. USA and the Mr. America, as a body weight of about 180 or so, getting ready for these competitions, maybe 190. I was squatting 635s, 635 pounds, for squats. My last set for 2 reps.
That's almost as much as I can.
Yeah, it's crazy weight. The bar actually bows with that much weight on it when you get underneath it. So I really wasn't very kind to myself. But I was doing flies in the gym one day, getting ready in 1985 for the Olympia. And I just stretched out my arm just a little bit too far, and I snapped my bicep off of my forearm bone. So that kind of took me out of it. And what usually happens then is that bicep shrinks up your arm, and really your bicep is never the same again. And at that level of competition, there's not too much forgiveness at that level. And I was just getting to the point where hopefully I could make some money at this, and that I could provide the kind of lifestyle I wanted for my family.
Mm-hmm.
But
Now, at that point, you've been very open and vocal about the fact that you did take some steroids back then too. I guess probably try to get bigger.
Oh yeah.
Do you feel that had anything to do with the bicep issue that you had?
Dennis, I can't say that it. I can't take it out of the equation. I just can't take it out of the equation. Obviously, what it does is it allows the muscle cell to pump more water in it. The harder you can get that muscle cell full of water, the stronger you are. Mm-hmm. Anybody who's ever gone on vacation for a couple of weeks and has come back and they find themselves a little bit weaker because they didn't work out, it's the millions of muscle cells that you have in your body. And if each one of those just dissipates that water just ever so slightly, you're not as strong. And it's when the muscle cell is tight as it can be is when you're your strongest. And so part of what steroid does is it helps fill that muscle cell as tight as it can be, so you're artificially, stronger in a sense too. And but I was always underneath doctor's care. My doctor from when I was young was my doctor who helped guide me through this. When I became a pro, I knew that I was going to have to take steroids to get as big as these guys are getting. There's no one, believe me, no one on the professional stage that isn't. And if they are, they're lying.
Okay. I have to ask you, Dale, if you are aware, I'm sure you are, being in that circle, Greg Valentino, the guy whose bicep exploded?
Well, some
Not like yours.
Some of these guys are just injecting it right into their bicep. and they're doing, it's just, it's just insanity with some of these. And it's just not even actually a steroid that they're injecting in it. They're injecting in some saline solution that artificially pumps their arm. I mean, some of these people are just so whacked out. It's just unbelievable. I mean, the whole steroid issue, I'm going to take it from my point of view. I don't know when man has ever not used something to enhance him or her. We do it with cars, we do it with rockets, we do it with Teslas now. I mean, anything that is advanced, man, we have taken advantage of it. We're not riding around in horse and buggies.
Right.
Would it save more lives if we didn't have went back to horse and buggies? Yeah, but we ain't never going back to that. I mean, let's face it. So my doctor, we were under a really good understanding. I had blood workup done every 3 months. We knew exactly what my heart was doing, my liver, my kidney, all my organs. We stayed on top of it. And in my sport, I'm going to tell you what was shocking to me was at the pinnacle of some of these guys' careers. I mean, the very, very best in the world. Some of these guys weren't under doctor's care at all. They had no clue what they were doing. See, you get the mentality that, okay, if I take 2 cc's and it's going to get me this big, well, 4 cc's could get me twice as big, right? No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way at all. You can't take a steroid and sit on your couch and get any bigger than what you were. Right. All you possibly could do is damage your liver and your kidney. That's what you could be doing. You still have to tear the tissue. You still have to put in all the hard work. And what it does is help us repair and heal that at a much faster, significant rate. It doesn't mean anything else. Well, you took steroids. Come to the gym one day and train with me. Just once.
So these guys who do that and they get monstrously huge, I mean, is there even, at some point, do they lose the benefit in the competition? Or is it just the bigger the better? No, it's still, well, today I can't necessarily say it. They have a classic division and then they got this off the wall, over the chart division, which guys look like construction workers. They got guts that pump out and they breathe, and yeah, they got big arms and big legs. But if that was the look back when I got into this, I would have never got into it. So they call us the classic look now, where we got the narrow waist and the big lats, and you look proportionate and you look pleasing to the eye to most people anymore.
Right.
But these guys, they're taking growth. They're taking human growth hormone. They're taking thousands of milligrams of tests and all sorts of stuff. They're off the charts doing this. My doctor, who was my family physician, we were under the understanding. He always told me, Dale, just because this much is going to get you this big doesn't mean twice as much is going to get you twice as big. Twice as much could just do damage to your kidney, your liver, and other things. So we always cycled up and cycled down off. We always let my own natural hormone come back up, because your body will always try to adjust. It'll shut down your own hormone if you're on it too long. So everything had to be in perfect balance. So I never had to take a lot of the stuff. And, I had pro bodybuilders that would say, hey, Dale, what do you want? And I would tell them. And, a really great friend of mine, Lee Haney, he asked me one time, he says, Dale, what are you on? We were in the sauna. It's just me and him. And believe me, I love the guy. He's just the best. So he asked me, and I told him, and he kind of got upset with me, like, okay, Dale, if you don't want to tell me, fine, whatever. Lee, this is what I'm taking. Okay, fine, let's just change the subject. Lee,
he thought, he thought you were doing more than you were admitting to. Is that?
Absolutely. But I used common sense with everything I do, and you know, I've got friends in the sport that are no longer here. They're no longer here, and that's sad because they use themselves as guinea pigs, and you know, they really weren't being smart. And some of the guys that are the cream of the crop, the best of the best, were not under doctor's care. It shocked me because you don't get to the top of a sport without being pretty smart in any sport you're into. You have to be a pretty intelligent person. You have to have things figured out, you know, and so it was just surprising to me that, you know, very many guys were not. So, you know, but, you know, thank God I'm here, and, you know, I made it through it, and, you know, I've been clean for 30 some years now or more, you know, 35 years or whatever. I'm not counting it anymore. You know, I'm not even taking the stuff that the doctors say, hey, come on in and get it yet. And, you know, there may be someday I end up doing that, you know, just to, because I kind of like to know what my testosterone level is. But, you know, I don't feel any differently at 68 that I am today than when I was 40. I really don't. I still feel just as good.
You know, speaking of, after you had the bicep tear, I know that you did return to competition briefly up through, I think, 86 maybe.
I competed in 1985. I thought it was 86 too, but when I really thought about it, it was 1985. And I had Dr. Rick Rippinger from this area, incredible orthopedic, reattach my right arm to my forearm. I wish he was still practicing now, but he just recently retired. I just don't know where I'd go if I tore something else because I had such faith in him. And he was affiliated with ORA. But it never usually comes back. It's never usually as full. And when Dr. Rippinger, before the surgery, went in, they were going to cut my arm from here. They were going to come in around. They were going to bring this whole S shape. And I said, Doc, I know where it's at. I know the end of my tendon is right there. It's right there. And he looked at me and he laughed. He went, oh, yeah. And I says, please, Doc, just make that first incision. Don't cut up my arm like that. If you find it there, we're good, right? He goes, all right. So he opened it up, and I knew one of the nurses that was on his staff in the operating room. He looked down and he went, I'll be damned. There it is. So I was right. And so they didn't have to make that huge incision, but they still had to drill holes in my forearm bone and reattach my bicep back down to it. And, you know, I had to walk my fingers up the wall with my hand at beginning, and then, you know, finally it was 2.5 pounds. And, you know, the arm usually never comes back. And so it was a scary time for me. You know, I planned on making some money at this point from now on. And, you know, bodybuilding is, in its sense, for as much time as I had to put into it. You know, I was also working at Alcoa 56 hours a week, 48 to 56 hours a week, you know. I was working, you know, and then I still had, you know, time to, you know, go to the gym, and I had 2 young boys. So anyway, you know, it was, so anyway, I was driven, you know, I wanted to compete again. I still had yet something to prove to myself. And so the night of the champions was coming around in New York City, and, you know, I built my arm back, and it hadn't shrunk up. I built my arms back. I mean, I'm telling you, I built my arms back. I was getting a tuxedo or a suit made for myself because Rick Wallach, a good friend of mine, was getting married, and I didn't want to go to the rehearsal dinner with a pair of sweats on, you know, because I I couldn't get the jacket to fit. If a jacket fit, my pants, you could fold it in half, and pockets would fold. It just didn't work. So I had a tuxedo made from Victor's tuxedo shop down in Bettendorf, and I've never measured myself before. And I'm standing there, and I got my arms cold down at my side, and he says, "Do you know what your measurements are?" I go, I really don't. I really don't. So he's measuring my arm around with my arms just flat at my side, not pumped, not flexed. And he says, "Well, you'll want to know what this is." And I go, "What is it?" He says, "It's 22 inches. Now, Arnold's pumped and flexed were 21 and a half.
Wow.
So
Wow.
my arms were 22 inches cold at my side. And I says, "Wow, cool." My waist was a 31, and my thighs were 32s each.
Wow.
And so that's why I had to have a suit made, shirt made, everything else. So the Night of the Champions was coming up, and I competed at the Night of the Champions that night in New York City, and that was my first time back. Everybody told me it couldn't be done. My arm would never be the same. That my career was pretty much over. So that was an emotional night for me. Because
it seems like it's still emotional.
yeah, it is, thinking back upon it, because I went up through a lot of brick walls to get there, mentally, physically. I put myself through a lot of brick walls to get back, and the roar of the crowd that night when I was posing, I felt it right through my body, and it was one of the greatest feelings of my life. It really was. It was.
And I can feel that. I can feel that coming through as you're telling the story. I imagine that had to have been amazing to have, been on the precipice and then have this tragedy befall you, and then work your way back to the point where you can get back on that stage and hear the roar of the crowd. Had to be amazing.
It was. Just one thing I want to say about that is, at that point when I was on the stage, every emotion runs through your body, or it did for me. I mean, I wanted to laugh, I wanted to cry, I wanted to run and never stop, and it was other than the birth of my children, it was probably one of the most incredible highs that I had ever experienced in my lifetime. And I thank God, and I am blessed for the lows in my life, because I really am blessed. I see those as opportunities. Those were the things that drove me to levels that I didn't even know that I possibly had in me. And I would have never been able to appreciate that high without going through the trials and the lows of my life that made that high worth it. And it was, yeah, I'm back there right now. I feel that sure. Feeling that I went through, and it's an incredible experience. Most people go through their life, they just kind of go through the motions. They've really never challenged themselves in their life to really see what they're capable of, or what God had in store for them. I mean, they're just kind of existing and just kind of mucking their way through life, and I never just really wanted to live that way. I wanted to know what in this field, what my possible potential could be. And there's so much negativity in the world, and people that are told they can't because of their race, or because of who they are, or whatever. It's so defeating of a purpose. People are cutting down people. Well, it's because you you're black or you're this or you're that. It's insanity to me. Everybody has God-gift potential in them if they would just see it for themselves, or if others would see it for them. Kind of like, my dad. He was just of that generation where, if he would have told me that I was great, then he thought to himself, well, maybe I'd let my guard down, and I might not try so much. There's that part of that generation. The first time I ever heard my father say he was proud of me was after I won the Mr. USA at Caesar's Palace, and the crew was interviewing him and my mom, and
I can say this, Dale, with the knowledge that you have of the sport of fitness in general, and the passion that you have, and this philosophy about the abilities that we all have, and how you can persevere to bring that out, you've got to be the best personal trainer out there.
Seriously.
I swear, absolutely.
well, my people like me. I've got guys, and I got men and women I've been, training for more than 15 years or so. They still come to see me. I mean, they know how to do this stuff, but what I bring to the table is, I love the fact that someone comes to me and they've had 3 or 4 trainers or 5 or 6 trainers before they've ever seen me, because then they understand what I bring to the table. If I'm their first trainer, they go, well, okay, everybody trains like this. Everybody knows this. No, I don't. There's probably only maybe a couple people in the Quad Cities that I would let train my mom. I mean, there just isn't that many of them as I watch them train people, even the ones with the college degrees. The mechanics and the positions that they put people into, down the road is going to cause injuries, it's going to cause challenges. And people think, okay, you got this training certificate, or you went to college and you studied kinesiology, and people blindly foul trainers as if they're that knowledgeable. Now, I'm probably going to have a few people in the Quad Cities angry at me, but oh well. I've never held back from saying what's on my mind. But the fact is that the mechanics is wrong in what they're sharing with people, and they're putting clients in danger. And here's some little trivia that you might not know of. There's over about 400 certificates that you can get for personal training in this country, everywhere from going to college and getting a degree in kinesiology, or going online and taking this little course and answering 150 questions at the end, and get this nice little golden plaque that you can put back up here on the wall, or as far as I'm concerned, getting one out of a box of Cracker Jacks. But I mean, people do more research when they buy a car than when they get a trainer. Oh, here's your trainer. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He's telling me to do this. Oh, yeah, he must know what he's doing. Oh, wow.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
So,
you asked yourself that question at the beginning of the interview about how long you're going to continue to do this, and I think it's clear that you still have this passion and obviously the knowledge to be able to do this as long as you feel up to it, as long as people are responding and reacting the way that you want, and get them to show up and do the work. I think that's great.
yeah.
Now I want to kind of shift gears and lighten things up a little bit, because we got a little intense, and which I love. And I know Dana is always a good one for some of these questions, but there are 2 little games that we're going to play. One is a new one, and I'm just going to call this Uncommon Convos. And the other one I mentioned before, we'll play the Would You Rather game. So, Uncommon Combos, what's the weirdest food that you enjoy?
I'm a pretty plain and simple guy. I mean, I really don't have any exotic, crazy food that I like that people go, yuck. I mean, you're eating that. I mean, my wife doesn't like to eat muscle, but she'll cringe when I'm having a slimy mussel. I'm sliding down my throat, but other than that, I don't think there's much of anything. How about chewing liver tablets,
That's pretty,
and sitting over the sink because the gag reflex about every fifth time I did that, I had to regurgitate it back in the sink. How about that one?
I think that's a pretty good one. Okay, so and Dana, chime in if you have some. But back in the ancient times, people would be buried with certain items that they thought that they would need in the afterlife. So, if that were the case, what items would you want to be buried with so that you'd have access to them in the afterlife?
A chainsaw.
Why a chainsaw?
I am so claustrophobic. You can't believe how claustrophobic I am. Oh my God. My wife says, yeah, how am I ever going to get you in the casket? Even dead, you're not going to want to get in that thing.
Well, that kind of leads me to the answer to the next one, which would be, what's the most ridiculous thing you bought? And that's probably a chainsaw for your coffin.
And if he hasn't, he's going to stop at Lowe's on the way home.
Right. I came across some would you rathers that I think are fitting for someone with your background. So, would you rather never be able to eat meat or never be able to eat vegetables?
Oh, that's easy.
Never able to eat vegetables.
I think
And here's why. You can't build a brick wall without bricks, and you can't build a body without protein.
Gotcha. Okay, so would you rather be balding but fit or overweight with a full head of hair?
Balding and fit, because I can always wear a baseball hat.
There
But as you
go.
can see, I'm doing pretty good.
You're doing pretty good on both accounts. Okay, would you rather have out of control body hair or a strong, pungent body odor?
Oh, I don't know if I can handle the body hair. I just, you mean one of those rakes to get the back and stuff like that?
Right, right.
I could probably cover up the body odor.
There you go. All right, this is my last one, and Dana, if you've got some. Would you rather clean rest stop toilets or work in a slaughterhouse for a living?
Oh, man.
No.
See, I think working in the slaughterhouse sooner or later gets to your mind.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't do the slaughterhouse. Yeah.
I agree with you. What do you got, Dana?
Yeah. So, who's the most famous person you've ever met?
Oh, jeez.
I mean, you and Arnold are friends, we know.
Yeah, and I suppose it would have to be Arnold would be right up there. Lou Holtz, I suppose it would be probably those two.
Okay. Have you met Bill Murray?
No.
Okay. He's my best friend, and we have to figure out a way to let him know that. So
Oh, okay.
that's a question that
Well,
I'll
I would like to meet
everybody.
him too. Don't get
Yeah.
me wrong.
All right. I'll let you know when we can make that happen. So, which month of the year do you think would best describe your personality?
Well, I think it has to be February because I'm an Aquarius and my wife's an Aquarius, so I think that's probably it.
I did not think you were going there when you said February. I thought you were going another direction.
No.
That's funny.
Is that it?
That's all I
Dana?
have. Yeah, that's
Okay.
good.
Well, because that her second to last question prompts this final question, Dale. I'm going to put you on the spot, and your answer is going to prompt us to follow up with whomever you name. So, which of the people that you've known throughout the years do you think would make an interesting guest on this podcast? And we're going to reach out to them.
You mean from here, from our
From
area?
Anywhere.
Anywhere? Well, Arnold, but I don't think he's going to show up.
That's what Zoom is for.
That's what Zoom is
Busy.
for.
Thank you so much, Dale, for being here. It was
Absolutely.
definitely fun catching up with you. I appreciate, everything that you had to say. Do you have any last thoughts?
Well, I do if you let me just plug it. I mean,
Absolutely.
if you're interested in getting in great shape or just knowing whether you're using equipment right or not, if you want to make sure that it's joint friendly, your nutrition is spot on or whatever, you can always reach me at DaleRupplinger@yahoo.com.
And
So-
that's definitely an email you guys are going to want to write down and follow up with.
Yeah.
So thanks again so much, Dale. We'll hopefully talk with you again soon.
All right.
Thank you all for joining us. Please like and subscribe to Uncommon Convos. And if you'd like to reach out to us, you can email us at info@uncommonconvos.com. You can catch the video broadcast of this podcast at vlaw.com. And also don't forget to check out Legal Squeaks. Hope you'll all tune in next week. In the meantime, have a great day. Stay safe. I love you all.